How's it going, everybody? Rybread here today, and I am back with John, and we are going to be continuing our off-season breakdown, and today we will be doing the Ottawa Senators for you guys. We are going in reverse draft order, so today's topic is the Ottawa Senators.
Pretty exciting team. Their style of play might not be described as exciting, but the players definitely are. They have dynamic players all across the board and good storylines to boot.
Oh yeah, speaking of, you said not a very exciting team to watch. That's just going to go ahead and bring up my stat of this video. When the Ottawa Senators were leading after two periods, they were 29-2-2, even though they were outshot and outscored in the third period. So that just goes to show that, that what they do gets the job done, even though it may not be exciting.
Yeah, they play a trap style, which we see some other teams kind of emulating now, especially after a successful. Going to Game 7 overtime against the Stanley Cup champion, that can definitely be considered, a successful season for a team that's had trouble making it deep into the playoffs.
But yeah, you're losing in, was it double overtime, was it?
Yeah, I think it was. It was
in
double
Game 7?
overtime to Chris
Pittsburgh?
Kunitz. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite games ever to watch, the Stanley Cup playoff match.
And it really could have gone either way.
And I think the biggest thing in that game that stood out to me was just the impact that Erik Karlsson had. Not that he only has an impact in the playoffs, that he always has an impact, but just the amount of goals. I believe Ottawa's goals came because of plays by Erik Karlsson, even though he may not have registered an assist.
Yeah, Karlsson's the kind of player that if you watch the Senators every day, he has an effect all the time, even not when it's not on the stats sheet, but he's also the kind of guy that you can see the flashy plays that he makes, like the 150-foot pass to Mike Hoffman. Honestly, the best pass I've ever seen in my lifetime. Or the feed to Brassard, where I think everyone in the world who was watching at the time thought that he was going to shoot that, and then he just fed it to Brassard, who had a wide open net. He just makes plays when they need to be made, and even when they don't need to be made, he's still out there.
Right, and one thing that I would be concerned about him is how is he going to respond after having off-season foot surgery to fix torn tendons in his left foot?
Yeah, this is a guy that's come back from injury before. I think we definitely saw him lose a step, and he's still, from his previous injury, and he was still dominant. I think this is a guy he knows how to deal with adversity. He'll come back strong.
I just worry about that mobility with him with the left foot early on in the season. I think he'll be right at the end of the season, but as I always say, points are much easier to get when the season starts than they are in the last 2 months.
That's true, and if he's still putting up points in the last 2 months, then I think he'll be okay come season.
Yeah, I think the Ottawa Senators come and go as Erik Karlsson goes and as their goaltending goes.
That is definitely true. They run through They run through Craig Anderson. He really is their rock, and this will be his last year of his contract, I believe. So it'll be an interesting thing to see how his season goes and how that might determine his future. I don't see them signing him again long term. He is what now? How old is he now?
He is 36. He'll probably be 37 by the time the season ends.
36 or 37, that's an age where you can sign a goalie. They have a couple more years for sure. We've seen goalies play really late, really old, and they don't decline the same way skaters do, but it's not a guy you want to lock up long term after that. Especially, I think Craig Anderson wants to be with his family, and I think he's had a good enough career. Like, I don't know. I don't see him in the league much longer.
And I think the Ottawa Senators are looking for that next goaltender. Now, I don't think Mike Condon is that answer. They've got him signed through the next 3 seasons, so it may be a 1A, 1B until they find that replacement. Andrew Hammond has been okay. He came out like a flash in the pan a little bit, and has kind of settled back into not being as elite as we all thought he was going to be. But yeah, Craig Anderson does need to up his contract. I think he's going to be signed for maybe 1, maybe 2 years at something around. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near what his current contract is 4.2. I think it's going to be more under 3 at the most.
Yeah, and I don't think. It's kind of tough to see in their goaltending prospects who's going to come up and replace him. That's the Ottawa Senators might be a team looking to free agency or a trade in the coming years. We've seen a lot of goalies move recently, and the goalie market is definitely a volatile one. So they might be a team looking to take advantage of that come trade deadline or the offseason. We saw Ronta move, we saw Mike Smith move, we saw Elliott move, we saw Mason move. It's been a goalie rotating wheel, so they could definitely get in on that, I think.
Let me ask you this, John. Just popped in my mind. Vegas took both Fleury and Picard, and if Picard looks like he's ready to be the start of the future, you think they trade Fleury to Ottawa for a decent haul in return, and would that make sense for Ottawa?
Yeah, I think that's an unlikely trade to happen, only because Fleury might be getting older too. That's not really the timetable that Ottawa wants to go down. I think they hold on to Craig Anderson long enough that Fleury wouldn't make sense, and also for Vegas, Fleury's their big name. I think they want to keep him for no other reason than to attract fans.
Marketing, right? That's a huge aspect. And as far as some players that need to, that are in contract years, we just mentioned Craig Anderson, but Cody Ceci as well in a contract year as we stick on the theme of defense and goaltending. And don't forget, in the expansion draft, speaking of the Vegas Golden Knights, they lost Mark Mathot as well, so that's a huge piece gone.
Yeah, that's a big loss. I think people understate Mark Mathot's impact on the team. He's not a superstar, but he definitely was important. Any top four defenseman you lose is a big loss. But, Cody Ceci is going to be a restricted free agent, so I don't think they'll have trouble signing him as long as the stingy owner up there is willing to shell out the money that he deserves. But really, their contract problems aren't this year. Aren't this coming year. They are the next year when Erik Karlsson expires. He should be one of the highest paid players in the league, no doubt. Just under McDavid.
And the fact that he's not even the highest paid player on his own team right now. He's not even the highest paid player at his position right now on the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, there's Dion Phaneuf, but I don't know what cap hit he has, but I think that the Toronto Maple Leafs retained some of it. I couldn't really tell you the exact details on that, but I know that Karlsson, no matter what, is due for a big payday. Like, just whether he's the highest paid defenseman on his team or not, he's the best in the league. I don't think anyone can really debate that.
And I think Brent Burns' speech about how he won the James Norris, but he kind of said he was like in awe of everything Erik Karlsson did all season. I think that kind of tells you just all the respect that he gathers throughout the league, and just the pure, because Brent Burns was a forward at one point in his career, I believe.
Yep.
So that's why he transitioned so well to getting points as a defenseman. But Erik Karlsson is very good at the defensive aspect, maybe not as much as physically as just positioning wise and using his stick and his skating ability to make sure that he can shut down plays. But just the pure offensive vision that Erik Karlsson has makes him a true wonder to watch on the ice.
So much of being a defenseman is moving the puck out of the zone. If you don't have it in your own zone, then it doesn't matter how good you are in your own zone.
So now that we've touched on the defensemen a little bit, let's go ahead and talk about the forwards this year. A pretty standard group. I don't think they made too many splash acquisitions or any at all. One guy they're hoping makes the jump and becomes a solid, bona fide NHL, maybe a middle six guy, top six, is Colin White.
Yeah, no, Colin White is definitely looking good so far. I think that he can make the jump. I don't know about top six. That time will really tell. But I don't think they're in trouble if he doesn't make that jump.
Right, they still have guys like Bobby Ryan locked up to a long-term deal. Hoffman, Brassard. I mean, MacArthur, though, we aren't sure if he's going to play or not this season because of his past concussion history. So that one's up in the air.
Yeah, actually, MacArthur just got. He's not going to play.
He just announced that.
Just recently, a doctor said they didn't clear him to play. So. Okay,
so that does. Does that mean that then they can stash him on long-term IR?
I think he would be on LTIR, but how many seasons does he have left?
He's got 3 years left on his contract at $4.65.
Yeah, he'll be on long-term injured reserve, but he won't. He definitely won't be playing. I don't think ever again.
Which is unfortunate. Being a Sabres fan, watching him start his career with the Sabres and then move his way up around the league, and now he really found a home in Ottawa this last season. Made a couple impact plays throughout the season. Where people were noticing him, but that is about $4.6 million that they're going to need to, shift around the cap and use where they think is right. But Another forward that is a big name for them is Mark Stone. He is in a contract year. He's still a restricted free agent, believe it or not, even though he's turning 26 during this season. He's on the last year of his contract at 3.5 this year.
Yeah, definitely one of the guys they want to lock up long term. One of the best defensive wingers in the league, honestly, for sure. He's never going to be looked at for a Selke just because he's not a center, but really just a solid two-way game and also can put the puck in the net. So.
I was just about to say that he's definitely a guy that you can look to score goals on a first line of maybe of Turris, Stone, and perhaps Ryan. I know they're both wingers depending on what side they prefer to play on, but they got some goal scoring opportunity. As far as center depth here, I mean, you've got Brassard and Turris are your top two centers. You got Pajot as well as could play center, can play wing. And then your bottom six is really just kind of up in the air as far as what do you want your fourth line center to look like, and what is the rest of your depth on your team? What is it going to look like?
Yeah, I think I just want to say real quick, I think the Bobby Ryan contract is actually going to be not looking so good in the coming years. He's definitely a guy that's the word overpaid comes to mind. He's not a bad player, but he's never quite lived up to his contract or his hype. You know, every year I think we hope for a bounce back year, and maybe even this year. He's a flashy guy, but if he can't produce, then I don't know that he's worth $7.25 million a year. And another guy we have to talk about more is Hoffman for sure.
Oh, easily.
Hoffman, he's going to be a top goal scorer in the league in the coming years. He's already 27, but I still think he's had a little bit of a later growth curve. So he's in his prime, and he's going to be cruising through the league next couple of years.
I think he's got a very, very solid all-around offensive game. When he's in the offensive zone, I think he can make a lot of plays happen, as well as just, making something for himself and putting the puck in the back of his back of the net, without having to have that setup man right next to him.
Yeah, his release is something that is special. You don't see that release very often in the NHL.
And that back to the Bobby Ryan contract. He is 30 this year, and he is signed for the next 5 seasons at 7.25. So if he can't solidify himself as a top winger, that contract is absolutely it's going to look very, very bad.
I mean,
especially
it's already overpaid, but if he starts to decline, then that could be very bad.
And I just look at the cap situation with the Ottawa Senators. They have $22 million projected for next season in the cap, but then again, that includes Clark MacArthur's contract. But a guy like Erik Karlsson in 2 years, they got to figure out what they want to do with guys like Ceci, Turris, and Stone, and then they have to plan even farther ahead for the Erik Karlsson contract. And Colin White is also going to expire the same year as Erik Karlsson, so they got to really figure out their contract situation, because they already have guys like Ryan and Phaneuf signed for a total of $14 million, just those two players.
Well, I think we're in the era where any conversation about a team coming up against the cap with players coming into their prime, so you got to start looking at the prospects. Who do they have coming up the pipeline? Those entry-level contracts are what's going to fill the gaps there and allow the team to remain competitive while playing their stars, kind of like we've seen the Blackhawks do.
And, to touch on that as well, the Pittsburgh Penguins, another team that uses the entry-level contracts. Now, their stars don't make as much as the Blackhawks, but I certainly think they find some pretty good, surprisingly, NCAA college hockey players on entry-level contracts to go ahead and fill out the depth of their roster as well as their stars, which I think Ottawa might have to do, although when you talk about their stars taking up most of the cap, I don't know if you'd consider Bobby Ryan one of the Ottawa Senators' stars.
Yeah, really, I'm just talking about big, inflated contracts like a Phaneuf or a Bobby Ryan. Those are inflated. It's a little bit different of a structure, but you're going to see something more similar to other teams once Karlsson gets his big payday.
And as far as who's going to take up those entry-level contracts, who do this Ottawa Senators really have coming up for them?
Yeah, the biggest name by far is Thomas Chabot. He is bona fide. That guy's going to be something special.
He's going to be definitely add to that defensive core. We had mentioned that Mark Mathot left and they replaced him with Johnny Oduya, but I definitely think that Oduya is not a direct substitution for Mark Mathot in no way, shape, or form. But I think Chabot can definitely get there and some.
Yeah, Chabot, he's definitely going to be the guy that they look to in the coming years. Recently it's been Frederick Claesson, but I think that's how you pronounce that. But Chabot just proved so strong and so dominant at the World Juniors, and now coming into I think he'll play a little bit this year. I don't know if he'll play the whole year, but he's at least going to get 9 games in, and then we'll see how the rest of his contract goes. But he's definitely good.
And we had already mentioned that there's not a lot looking down the pipeline for goaltending, but as far as forwards, how are they looking as far as forward depth in the pipeline? Maybe somebody that can replace Clark MacArthur, say, or some of these guys that they may not re-sign in the upcoming years.
Yeah, they have options. It's not as much as their defensive depth, but I mean, maybe you could argue they've made some draft blunders even. Logan Brown, there were other options available at the time. They traded up to pick for him, but he is a guy that could make an impact. It's really yet to be seen. But we'll see. I think they've focused on building from the back end out, which a lot of other teams have started to do too.
I mean, we saw the Nashville Predators have so much success with the build from the back end, and then the rest of it'll take place.
It's definitely a slower success.
Yeah, it will take a while, but I think the Ottawa Senators making it to the Eastern Conference Finals is definitely good. Obviously, every team wants to win the Stanley Cup, but I think it was that they'll be happy with an Eastern Conference Finals Game 7 double overtime appearance, and be looking forward for a little bit of a youth revolution to come in and kind of give the Ottawa Senators a little bit of new life, as well as helping Erik Karlsson while he's in the prime of his career.
Yeah, definitely. They don't want to waste Erik Karlsson's prime, and making it to a conference final, Game 7, double overtime. I don't think they can. I don't think that's wasted. We'll see. He'll have the chance the next couple years if Craig Anderson can stay competitive.
And I think a lot of it is, the back end is not only defense, but it is goaltending. And when Craig Anderson does start to decline a little bit, because they really haven't found somebody who's been more than pedestrian as far as backup level is concerned, they haven't found anybody that's a solid replacement for him. But as far as what this upcoming season holds for them, what do you think how the Ottawa Senators look for the 2017-18 season?
I think they are going to come out and definitely do better in the regular season than they did last year, just because Karlsson will. I mean, every year he's gotten better. Maybe not points wise, but just as a player, more complete. I think that I don't see any players directly on the decline. Maybe Phaneuf, but I don't think that either. For sure. And then guys coming up. It really depends on how the rookies go. Hopefully Craig Anderson can play all the season, or most of the season. And maybe Mike Condon's a little more comfortable goaltending. And
I think that's a little bit of the reason they kind of, were, I don't want to say underwhelming in the regular season, but finished a little bit lower than I think people thought they would.
Yeah, goaltending definitely hurt, yeah.
Yeah, Craig Anderson not coming in and out, I'm not discrediting the guy. I applaud him for what he did.
Honestly, he did really well for how broken up his season was. What an amazing story. The guy really performed when no one could really expect so much out of him.
Exactly. So as far as, I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of a stronger prediction here. I see them coming in second place in the Atlantic yet again, just because I see Tampa Bay taking a step forward. I see Tampa Bay making the playoffs and perhaps winning the Atlantic. And I think they'll be neck and neck with the Montreal Canadiens for the entire season, because that's another team that has just kind of revitalized their roster. So,
well, that leaves a big question mark of a strong Metro looking to take all 5 spots, and I think the main team you left out there is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I still think the Toronto Maple Leafs are a wild card contender. I don't see them as an Atlantic divisional spot yet. But I just think Ottawa is definitely going to take the second spot. I don't know what the Atlantic's going to look like around that, but I'm calling Ottawa to take spot number 2 again.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the tougher divisions to call. I think maybe a division like the Pacific is more cut and dry, but the Atlantic and the Metro both are really up in the air.
You've got about 6 teams in each of those divisions that could finish probably 1 through 6.
I mean, just looking in the Atlantic, you got Montreal looking to come back with Carey Price and a similar core. They've lost Radulov. I think they'll be a little bit worse.
Drouin.
But they did gain Drouin, so we'll see how that goes. The Maple Leafs just getting older. They should just be getting better. Although there have been talks of sophomore slump, so we'll see. And then the Bruins might be dropping off finally, but they also have good prospects like McAvoy coming up and Pasternak. And then the Lightning should, if the Lightning aren't better, some heads are gonna roll. Of course, they were riddled by injuries, so we'll see how that goes. Although I think the Panthers are a dumpster fire and won't be better, and the Red Wings are a dumpster fire and won't be better. The Sabres, though, should be better. Maybe just looking outside,
right? Outside looking in. I'd agree with that, but that's why I think the Ottawa Senators. There's a lot of consistency in that roster, and maybe Erik Karlsson coming back healthy. If he comes back strong, they could potentially win the Atlantic, but I don't see them doing so. I see them more as a second place in the Atlantic team, but that's just my prediction. It could be completely wrong, but that's all the time we have for this one, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening, and we will be back in the next one. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.